Okay, we are on Yud Zion Amud Aleph. We are in the Yud Ches Davar, the last of the Yud Ches Davar. 18 things that were enacted by Beis Shammai over Beis Hillel in the attic of Hananiah. So the Gemara said, "V'idach." What's the other one? Habitzer legas, somebody who is harvesting grapes with the intent of pressing the grapes. So a gas is a wine press. So a butzer, and the word butzer is a unique term for picking, for harvesting grapes. So a butzer legas, Shammai amo huchshar. Shammai says that the juices that come out of that, since your intent is to make juice out of it in any case, so the juice that comes out of some grapes unintentionally will count as a juice, a liquid enough to make the rest of the grapes susceptible to tumah. Again, as we said yesterday at the end, the reason is that in order for something to be susceptible to tumah, the Torah says kiyutan, when it would be placed intentionally. And even if it happens on its own, but if you want it, that counts. And so there's a juice that's on it because you want these juices anyhow. And so the grapes are now susceptible to tumah. And as we'll see later in the Gemara, even though these juices are going to waste because it's in a wicker basket, but nevertheless, since you could have, or sometimes you may, line that basket in order to retain the juices because you want the juices, therefore Beis Shammai enacted that this juice, even though now it's going to waste, you want it, so it's going to count as if it's a juice, and it will now, the grapes are now susceptible to tumah. Huchshar is a term, means kosher, means it's now prepared and ready to be tummy. Amalei Hillel l'Shammai. So Hillel challenged Shammai. If you're saying that in regards to grapes, why don't you say it in regards to olives as well? That when you harvest olives with the intent of making oil, so the juices that come out of the olives should make it susceptible to tumah. It should count as a juice. Now, Hillel, as much as Shammai knew that there's a great distinction between the initial juices that come out of grapes and the initial juices that come out of olives. The initial juices that come out of grapes are actually juice. The initial juices that come out of olives are not yet the oils. They're just like watery substance that come out. But nevertheless, they challenged and said, why you only say it by grapes and not by olives? In other words, they were saying, you toss the water that comes out of grapes, you're tossing the water that's coming out of the olives. Sorry, you toss the one that comes out of olives. So too, don't count because you toss the water that's coming out of grapes. So Amalei Hillel l'Shammai mipnei ma b'tzim b'tahara. And why do you have to do betzira, which is the harvesting of grapes, b'tahara, in a tahor vessel, because you say the juices make the grapes susceptible to tumah. Ve'ein muskin b'tahara, and that's the term for harvesting olives, and you don't do masika b'tahara, ein muskin b'tahara. Amar lei, so Hillel, Shammai said back to Hillel, al takniteni, don't ask me silly questions. You know the distinction, so don't ask me a question that's takniteni is annoy me, bother me. Don't ask me such questions, because if you really don't know the distinction between the two, well then we're going to have to make a gzera, gazrani toma afal masika. We're going to have to make a gzera even for masika, because the reason, as we saw a couple of days ago, there are two reasons for a gzera. Either because something is similar enough and people are going to make a mistake, or because somebody's likely to do something that and transgress. So the first enactment over here is that somebody may have a lined harvesting basket, and therefore the juices are going to be retained, and it counts as juice. So even a non-lined basket, you have to have it tahor, because we're going to say that the juices are intentional. You want them, and it's going to count as making the grape susceptible. Well, then But there's another type where people mistake one thing for another. So Shammai was saying to Hillel, if you confuse the juices coming out of grapes with the juices coming out of olives and you think that they're the same, well, then we're going to have to make that same rule about the olives because you think that that too is a retainable and a worthy juice. Now, the truth is that's not the halacha because everybody knows the distinction. And as Tosfos points out, what comes out of grapes initially from the start is already the juices that are worthy for wine. What comes out of olives at first with is nothing. It's just mohal. It's just like watery substance. It's not the actual olive oil or anything. That takes time to soak it and marinate it before you can get anything out of it. In any case, Beis Shammai said that even in a basket that has holes in it, and the juices will be lost. Nevertheless, those juices are what you're intending now because you're harvesting these grapes for the press, and therefore they count as juice and will make the grapes susceptible to tumah. And so all your baskets have to be tahor. They have to be tahor, pure. So the students of Shammai wanted to take account to see whether they're in the majority. As we said, some of the students of Hillel joined the students of Shammai, and they were ready to take account. So people tried leaving. So they took a sword and they stuck it at the doorway of the Beis Midrash. Amru anichnas yichnas yikanis. Somebody wants to come in, sure, come in. So if more of Beis Shammai or more Beis Hillel want to come in and join the count, fine. But the one who wants to leave cannot leave. There's a machlokes here in the Mefarshim who wanted to leave. Was it the students of Hillel that crossed over to Shammai didn't want to be in the account? They didn't want to be counted amongst the Beis Shammai, or was it the students of Beis Hillel that wanted to leave that there wasn't enough to have a quorum? Either way, some of the students of Hillel wanted to leave, and the students of Beis Shammai prevented it. They said, no, we're going to take a vote, and we're going to take a vote with you here. And Hillel himself sat in his humility and modesty, sat before Shammai like a student, even though they were zugas, and he was the nasi. Nevertheless, he was sitting in front of Shammai, like one of the students. And it was difficult for Yisrael, like the day that Egel was done. I have no idea what the comparison to the day that the day of the golden calf is here. Was it on account of Hillel the Nasi sitting like a student in front of Shammai? Was it on account of that they wanted to leave and they didn't let them leave? I'm not sure what that is. And Rashi says it was a difficult day because Hillel was modest. Great, but what part of that modesty makes it so difficult? No. However, Hillel and Shammai themselves made the enactment because Hillel accepted Shammai, but none of the Yisrael, the Jews, did not accept it on account, as we saw earlier, that every enactment has to be something that Bnei Yisrael accept, otherwise it doesn't become halacha. Then the students of Hillel and Shammai continued to argue about it and discussed it, and in the attic of Hananiah, Gozer, they enacted it again, and then it spread and it became halacha. So the Gemara says, my time. What is in the
I was just going to ask, I mean, so the scene is you have Hillel in front of Shammai,
and a bunch of students.
And a bunch of students of Hillel's.
And Shammai.
And Shammai and his students. But, I mean, first of all, it's clear from the lashon of the Gemara that, I mean, it was a hashpala for Hillel to sit like that, wasn't it?
He was being modest, yeah.
He was being modest, but I mean,
it wasn't Shammai doing that to him. Hillel did that to himself.
Yeah.
Shammai didn't say, you must sit in front of me like a student. There's no hashpala is a term of belittling someone. Shammai didn't belittle Hillel. Hillel sat in front of Shammai like a student. I don't know. I don't know if it's a hashpala.
We know in other encounters that we see that there was like a good deal of, putting them down and putting them down. And
Who putting whom down? Who are you talking about? I don't know who you're talking about.
The Talmidim of Hillel and the Talmidim of Shammai, and
Why? No.
Is that a no? I'm saying in Beya with the korban, and is it, why are you bringing a female, and why? I
don't know if they're putting down. They're arguing in halacha. I don't know if they're putting each other down. In other machlokas, sometimes you see them putting each other down. I don't know if that in Beisamri is quite the contrary. You see them working together a lot. Look, they're sitting and learning together, and Hillel sits in front of Shammai. That to me is enormous coexistence, not hashpala. But Hillel, even though that he was a nasi, he was a prince, and the prince ought to act in the leadership, and he didn't. He sat in front of Shammai. So to a degree, that's a great humility. But the Gemara says that it was difficult for people. It was a very difficult day. I'm not sure exactly the comparison to I'm not sure why they use a comparison to the golden calf. In any case, the Gemara goes back to say, okay, so what's the basis for this enactment? What is the reason? My timer. Maybe you're gonna use tame. You're gonna use tame baskets. The Gemara says, that's fine according to the opinion that says that the fact that it's in a tame vessel itself is going to make it count as you're turning it into a susceptibility to tumah. The very fact that you put it into a tame vessel, and here too Rashi says, I don't know where that opinion is recorded. Rashi, even though Rashi could have left it empty, he just said, I don't know what this is. What's the source? In any case, the Gemara says a source that there's an opinion that says that even though we said that it needs a liquid in order to make the produce susceptible to tumah, the very fact that you put it into a tameh vessel counts as choshev, that your intent and your importance that you give to the vessel makes it that it's now susceptible to tumah. But according to the opinion that says that a tameh vessel is not sufficient to make it count, so then you don't care that these juices are there. It's going to run out. So rather, Za'iri says, maybe you're going to harvest it in vessels that already have lining in it. They're tarred or something that would make the juices be retained. And then for sure, since you're harvesting it for the press and you're harvesting it in a vessel that retains the juices that run out, those juices are a part of your wine. And therefore it's going to count as enough of a juice to make it susceptible to tumah. And since you may use such lined vessels, even wicker baskets that you lose the juice also count as a gzeira. Amarava says gzeira mishum hanushches. It's because of tightly pressed grape clusters, where if one of them bursts, the juice runs onto the other grapes, and you want it there because you want to retain the juices. Sometimes somebody would go to his vineyard to see whether the grapes are ready for harvest. And he'll take one grape in order to pull it out, in order to squeeze one grape in his hand over the rest of the cluster, so he can retain the juices. and he spills that one grape, or he squeezes that one grape on the rest of the cluster. And then when he actually harvests that juice that he purposefully, intentionally squeezed onto the rest of the cluster in order to retain it, is still on those grapes, and that makes it susceptible to it. In any case, for the purpose, the reason for the enactment is on account of that the grape is the juice is what you want. The meaning is that the grapes are now susceptible to tumah, and therefore you have to use tahor vessels in order to harvest the grapes, even if the vessels have holes in it, like a wicker basket. V'idach, what else do we have? Now we're going to turn to Zayin Amud Beis. Omar Tavi Rishba. So Tavi, the bird trapper, said, Omar Shmuel, the name of Shmuel, Af Gidule Truma, Truma Babiyam Gazer, that growth of Truma counts as Teruma. So if you plant Teruma, it's going to be Teruma. That's what we're going to say. My time. So you took Teruma produce and you put it into the ground, and new things grew, that's going to be Teruma. So first it said, maybe somebody has Teruma. He doesn't want to have to give it to the Kohen. So what he's going to do is, he's just going to harvest it. Sorry, he's just going to plant it. And it'll become a part of his garden. And it decomposes under the ground, so it's no longer the Teruma originally was. And now it grows, and it's a new product. So voila, I have myself a new produce out of the teruma. I never have to give it to the Kohen.
So this is number 19, or this is actually one of the 18, and one of the other ones does it, we have to get.
We're
rid
only
of.
up to 18.
Oh, I thought that was 18. I thought the last one was 18.
No. I started off. I said we're in the last ones. The last ones.
I didn't hear the S. Okay.
Yeah, the last few left. We'll see that the Gemara is going to ask. There's another few that count as one or two, and then it's machlokas of whether they're in. So this is actually number 16, and this is number 16. So in any case, he said, "Amar Rabbi either chashidi lo hachi afrushi namana livfreshu." He said, if the person doesn't want to give the teruma, he doesn't have to anyhow. All because we know the halacha is there's no minimum amount of teruma. You can give one kernel, one cluster. You don't have to give a lot. So if he really doesn't want to give teruma, just don't give it. Just give one kernel, and that'll be enough. One grape, and it'll be enough. So he wouldn't even separate it. So that's not the issue, that he doesn't want to give the teruma. Now, obviously, it's possible that he was feeling generous when he gave it, and then he was feeling stingy generous when he separated it and then didn't want to give it in the end. But in any case, rather Rava says it's keeping the efshel mevet chita achas. It's possible to just make one grain be your teruma k'da Shmuel. And since he's not doing that, himune ma'amni, you should believe him. So trust him that he's going to give it properly. We don't have to make an enactment for that unique case. Ela gzeira mishum teruma tamim. Rather, it's not on account of the person not giving the teruma, but rather the Kohen himself may take the teruma that became tummy, and he's not allowed to benefit from it. He's not allowed to eat it. He has to burn it. He can benefit from the burning, but he's not allowed to eat it. So what he's going to do is he's say, you know what? I'm going to plant this and grow new produce out of this. And that's not a problem, but the problem is that he may leave it around until the planting season. And that's going to create a scenario where you have the Kohen leaving teruma tamei around in his house, and that's going to create problems of somebody eating it by mistake, which is obviously usher, or it contaminating other things. So that's not a good idea to keep around your teruma. And if it's going to be teruma anyhow, so therefore he wouldn't do it. He'd only do it if it becomes produce that he can plant it, and then the produce will become something he can sell in the market. All right. So the next, Ve'idach, what are the next ones? So Amar Rabbi Chia bar Ami Mishmei de Ula Af Mishehechshech Le Bederach Uneisen Kisel Anachri Boy B'Yom Gazru. The halacha is, and we'll see this later, that if somebody is traveling and it's Friday afternoon and the sun is setting and he's got some packages with him, or he's got a package, or he's got his wallet, and he's really close to town. So what he wants to do is he wants to put down his wallet, pick it up, move it less than 4 amos and put it back down, and pick it up and move it less than 4 amos and put it down, and pick it up and move it less than 4 amos and put it down. And this way he never carried the full amount, and because each akira, havara, and hanacha is less than 4 amos, and that would be in this way he can get into town. So the Chacham said, no, you can't do that. You have to give it to someone else, a non-Jew, to carry in for you. So that was an enactment on that day, and we'll see more about this in the Gemara in 5 months or so. V'idach, and one of the what's the other one? Amabali Amavimi Samasa. The enactment not to eat bread baked by a non-Jew, and the oil of a non-Jew, and the wine of a non-Jew, and the daughters of a non-Jew, all of them are an enactment. And the Gemara is going to say, well, actually, that's not accurate. The daughters of a non-Jew are Issa Doraisa. That's a Torah prohibition, and to not marry the daughter of a non-Jew. But the Gemara means is the bread and the wine and that they make and the oils that they make are enacted on account of that will bring you to mingle in their house, hang out in their houses, and then you're going to end up dating their daughters and marrying them. Tosfos points out that wine has a different issur as well. Wine is the only one of these that are asur bahana. Not only are you not allowed to drink the wine of a non-Jew, but you can't even benefit from it, and that's because wine is a part of the religious services, and as such, it would be a part of the avodah zarah service, and therefore you can't have their wine on account of that it's nesach. It's something that would be poured before their gods. So Gemara elaborates. Rabbi Meir. So this is, you find, according to Rabbi Meir, that he counted the vessels that are underneath the rain. So that counts as one of them, as we saw. So then now you have, this is going to be the 18th. Hello, Rabbi Yossi. But according to Rabbi Yossi, that he doesn't count the vessels beneath the gutter, beneath the drain, is a part of the enactments of Beis Shammai. So you only have 17. Ikahadar Ravacha bar Adam. So he says, no, we have this teaching of Ravacha bar Adam. Amar Ravacha bar Adam, Rabbi Yitzchak, Gozra al Pita Mashum Shan. The enactment was, don't eat their breads that a non-Jew made in his home, on account of you may eat their oils. Shamnon, and they don't have their oils that they make mishum yenon, on account of their wines. And so Gemara says al pita mishum shamnon, the bread because of the oil. Why is oil worse than the bread? So the Gemara says rather al pita my olmid the shemem mipas elixera al gazra al pita. They enacted a prohibition of eating the breads of a non-Jew, Mishamnan, and the oils of a non-Jew, Mishum Yenan, because you will come to, if you eat, all their breads used to be dipped in when they would eat bread, they would dip it in a oil or some sort of dip. And so don't eat their breads and their dips, the oil, Mishum Yenan, because then you're going to drink wine with them. Val Yenan, and don't drink wine with them, Mishum Yenan, because then you're going to hang out with them, and you're going to end up marrying their daughters. And And why? And the Torah says, why shouldn't you marry their daughters? Because of idolatry, because it's going to lead you astray. And something else also because of something else. What is this something else because of something else? My davaracha. That we said earlier there was an enactment that a Kutite infant girl is already in Ida. Here we're saying that young boys of non-Jews count as Zav, and that's a Tuma as well. Why? Because otherwise your boys will play with their boys, and it was common in that era with the Greeks and the Romans that the little boy was an opportunity for mishkav zachar, for homosexuality. Well, that's an enactment even according to Rabbi Meir. So Tishsari Havia, so he's going to have 19. Where it says, the foods and vessels. In the first ones that we said, that the foods and vessels count as a source of tuma to make tuma of mashkin, of a liquid. He counts those vessels and foods to be tummy with the juices as a one. That's not two separate ones at the beginning. He counts that as one, and therefore, even though he counts as davar acher as well, it's still down to 18. Interestingly, in the previous halacha of breads and oils, breads, as we saw in the Gemara Hulin, were accepted as a prohibition. Bread has to be made; it cannot be made in the home of a non-Jew. It's called pas akum, bread of a non-Jew. There's something else, bread made in a bakery, that's pas palter, which is permitted. And then you have pas Yisrael, which some people are makbid on, which is that it should actually be made by a Jew. All that is accepted. It was accepted halacha, but the enactment of not eating their oils was never accepted and did not become halacha, or a later based in undid it. And that's the Gemara in Folio. Sorry, the Gemara in Avodah Zarah. So with this, we complete the Yud Ches Davar, which really ends up being more like 2021. It's just that different shitas have different ones that they count as the 18. So we have all these enactments, and they go according to Shammai because they were the majority that day in the Beis HaMidrash. This Mishnah goes back to the original conversation, which is things that you shouldn't do on Friday on account of you're running into Shabbos. So we said certain smiths should not take their wares, their tools, and put it in a place on Shabbos that they may continue carrying it on Shabbos. So don't put your carpenter should put his pencil on his ear, etc. A tailor put his needle in his garment. Or carry it. Here we're going to get into certain things that we're not concerned you're actually going to do it on Shabbos. But if you do it now, it's going to continue happening on Shabbos. Whether you're allowed to do that or not. So, Beishamai Omrim, and we'll see a fundamental machlokas between Shammai and Hillel on whether there's a concept of shvisas kelim, whether your vessels have to rest. The Torah says you and your household and all the people in your household and your animals that are in your household all have to rest on Shabbos. You cannot have your animals work. And then the Torah says additionally that your vessels are not allowed to work either. And we'll have a pasuk for that. So since your vessels may not work, there's certain things that are going to be prohibited. That's issue number one. That's a question in Bisham Basil, whether your vessels are also prohibited. Shvisas kelim, your vessels have to rest. We're going to see another concept, which is avsha milsas, things that are noisy and visible that are your tools that are working on Shabbos. For instance, we'll see a mill. If you put grains into a mill, and it's a windmill or a water mill, and it continues to mill all throughout Shabbos, does that count as a mill? Is that permissible or not? Because it looks like you're doing the work on Shabbos. So you're not allowed to soak ink or other dyes, or karshinin is some sort of beans or husks that would be animal feed, but they have to be soaked and absorbed in order for it to be edible. It has to be sufficient that it can be sufficiently absorbed before Shabbos comes in. Basil says, no, you can put it in right before Shabbos and let the soaking happen on Shabbos. Similarly, you can't take beaten flax and it needs to become linen. You can't put it into the oven and that would sort of dry it and make it white. You can't put it into the oven before Shabbos and let it happen on Shabbos. And we'll see if he'll permit it. And you also can't put wool into a dye pot unless the dye will have taken hold in the wool before Shabbos. But you can't let it soak on Shabbos to absorb. Basil Matir and Basil will say both of these are permissible. You're not allowed to put out traps for animals and birds and fish unless you know it's going to be trapped before Shabbos. This says, how are you supposed to know that? Some sort of system where there's a good estimate that you can assume that this will have trapped an animal prior to Shabbos coming in. But if it's going to continue trapping on Shabbos, then and you can assess that it will, then you're not allowed to do so. Basil Matir and Basil say, no, you're not doing anything on Shabbos. It's working on its own. You're allowed to. You're not allowed to sell anything to a non-Jew very close to Shabbos because it looks like he's working for you when he leaves your home. If it ain't tiny in you can't help him load up his donkey. If it ain't magbin alav, and you can't help him load up his shoulder, putting the box on his shoulder. Unless there's enough time for him to leave your home and get to another place that would count, that would look like he's at a destination before Shabbos, even if it's closed. Basil Matir and Basil say, no, all this is permissible. You're not allowed to put hides into the brine or whatever that it soaks in order to work it. You also can't give your clothing to a launderer unless it can be completed before Shabbos. And Basil say all of these can be done as long as there's still some sun up, meaning it's right even up to Ben Hashmashas. We are now in Yud Ches Amud Aleph at the 18a at the top. Very cool. Thank you for sharing that. Nice image of the list of things that Beis Shammai say you can't do and Beis Hillel say you can do. Thank you very much. Anybody that's not on Style Daf really wants to join it. Rabbi Farber does a fantastic job of creating these infographics every single day to help understand and retain the things we're learning. Amar B'Shimon Gamliel. B'Shimon Gamliel says, "Nahagin hayu beis Abba in my father's household, in Rabbi Gamliel's household. The custom was white linens, which were hard to wash. They would only give it to the launderer, Nachri, even if it was a non-Jewish, they wouldn't give it 3 days of Shabbos because it takes 3 days to do. They would never give it from Wednesday on. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, they wouldn't give it. Only Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. However, Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel both agree the way they would do the last press of grapes and oils is that they would take the remaining pulp and they would put a squeeze on it, and a heavy log, a heavy beam would be placed on it, and it would let that sit like that over Shabbos, and that would continuously sort of squeeze out more and more of the juices. It would just like drip out for the rest of Shabbos. Everybody agrees that's permissible. So the Gemara says, Mantana and Nesinas. So we're trying to figure out the first part over here. What's the prohibition? What's the concern of soaking the ink and the spices, which are going to create your dyes, and the karshinin, which is going to create your animal feed? What's the problem? What are you doing over here? The Gemara says the concern is that this is a part of the malacha of lush, kneading. So you're not actually kneading these. You're not taking the liquid and the dry powder and mixing them and working it by pushing them into each other, which is called gibul, a mixing. But you're rather you're just putting the liquid over the dry substance, and that's sufficient. So Mantana, whose opinion is it that nesinas maim l'dyoizu shiriyasan, that it's sufficient to just be considered kneading, kn, that it's considered kneading by just putting the liquid over the dry substance. That's enough. Amar Rav Yosef Rebbe, this opinion of Rebbe, the Tani we learned, echad noisen as a kemach, if one person puts the flour, ve'echad noisen as a mayim alav, and the other fellow puts the water over it, ha'achron chayev. The person who put the water over it has transgressed and needs to bring a chatas for kneading. Divrei Rebbe, that's Rebbe's opinion. Rabbi Yosef no, it's not going to be chayev until you actually do some stirring and mix the liquid and the dry powder to turn it into a mush. So Abaye said maybe this was only said in flour, the bar gibelum, because it requires the kneading, and without kneading you didn't do it. There's nothing there. I mean, you don't have just pour water over flour. It's nothing. But ink, which doesn't actually need that, it just needs liquid over the dry substance, and that's going to turn into ink on its own. You don't have to knead it. Ema lichayev. Maybe he would agree that you're going to be chayev. You will have transgressed kneading because that is the final kneading it needs. L'sakadaita. It's not logical. The time we learned efer because we said if somebody gives ash, is a mayim, and somebody put water, the one who added the water is going to be chayev and has to bring a carbon. Divrei Rebbe and Rabbi Yosef, no, there too you need the kneading. Now that's and everybody knows ash doesn't knead. It doesn't turn into a substance. You can't knead ash. My Afer. So Gemara says, no, you know what he means by Afer? He doesn't mean ash. Afar. He means the ground, soil. And that is the bar gibel. That actually you could knead. You can turn it into a clay in order to make pottery, whatever. Vatanya Afer, Vatanya Afar. But we have one brisa that says it with an aleph, which is ash, Afer, and one says Afar, which is dirt, ground, soil. And therefore it is indicative that both of these have the same halacha. And one says, no, midi gabi adadi tanya, were they taught next to each other? They're not. As we know that Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, Rabbi, he compiled all the teachings into the Mishnah, and Rabbi Chia, his student, and Rabbi Yoshaya, they took the rest of the teachings that were not included in the Mishnah and included them in brisas. Rabbi Chia wrote compiled some brises, and Rabbi Shai compiled some brises. So the fact that you have a brisa that says it with an aleph Afer and another brisa that says it with an ayin Afar doesn't tell you that they were said by the same person and together, and therefore you have an indication that both Afer and Afar, just pouring the water over is sufficient, or it's not sufficient according to Rabbi Yossi and you need to knead it. But rather, it's all talking about Afar, and Rabbi Shaya said Afer, but he meant Afar. Or Rabbi Chia said Afer and he meant Afar. In any case, so the opinion over here is Rabbi Yossi, is Rebbe, who says that just pouring the liquid over the dry substance counts as kneading, even though you didn't actually mix them. Tanaraban. Poskemayim Lagina. Other things that you're allowed, the Brisa says another group of things that you're allowed to do on Friday, even though they're going to continue on Shabbos. You can turn on the hose and let it run into your garden on Shabbos to irrigate. For instance, they didn't have hoses, but you can open up a valve or a ditch to let water run through your field, even though it's right before Shabbos and the water is only going to start running through on Shabbos. Even if it's right before sunset. And let the water run in and fill your ditches in your field all of the Shabbos.
So I got timer on my irrigation system, and I said Dafka not to go off on Shabbos.
Not
so
a
I don't
timer.
have to do that?
The timer is going off on Shabbos. That's something else. That looks like you said it. That may be prohibited, but I think the consensus is mutter anyhow. But there it's different. The question over there is where something is set to go off on Shabbos. That's not the discussion here. The discussion over here is where you did something on Friday, close to Shabbos, but on Friday, and it's just going its natural course and continuing into Shabbos. Similarly, mugmar tachas hakelim, you're going to put incense smoke underneath your garment. That's the way they used to make their garments smell better. They would put incense smoke underneath it, and it would perfume the garments. You can put it right before Shabbos, light that incense, and let the garment absorb the smoke the entire day. Similarly, so when they had a silversmith would make nice engravings into silver, they would then put sulfur smoke beneath it to blacken it, so to highlight the engraving. And even though that it continues to become smoke the rest of Shabbos. And you can put these potions and dyes on a wound. We'll continue with this wound medicine tomorrow morning. What kind of medicines the Gemara is going to analyze? What is the medicine and what is it used for?
So, quick question.
Yeah.
So the issue, and it seems to be coming up again and again, is it's not that an activity has an inevitable consequence. That the issue is more that it's close enough to Shabbos that somebody might think you're doing it on Shabbos. Is that right?
Right. What the Gemara is going to tell us soon is that according to Beis Hillel, there is no concern that something is happening within your space. That in and of itself, not a problem. The problem is only either that your vessel is working or that it looks like you did it on Shabbos. But the very fact that something's happening in your field or in your space, not a problem. All right, we're going to stop here for today, and we're going to continue davening on this chat. So everybody can remain on. Everybody that's staying for davening can remain on, and we're going to daven together.